There is still a big looming question here, as through the whole debacle this offseason, from Dylan Larkin's trade request all the way to the new GM search and what's happened and all the fallout with Steve Yzerman, there's still a big order of business to get done for the Red Wings ahead of this next season, and that is signing Simon Edvinsson to a brand new contract extension. And things are starting to heat up a little bit, and things are starting to fall apart within the organization. We're going to break down exactly why it's so crucial that they signed Simon Edvinsson to a brand new contract extension as soon as possible. We're going to break down all the new rumors, reports, all of that on this extension and what's happening behind the scenes, some new updates on the GM search, Dylan Larkin, and a bunch more in this episode of Red Wings Digest. But before we get into all of that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 85% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Red Wings, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, and you won't miss a single thing to do with the Red Wings. And there's a lot going on right now. And Mark, I'll pass it over to you. It's been an eventful offseason so far, that is for sure.
I mean, with the season ending, everyone looked at, hey, we missed the playoffs again. Maybe it goes up from here. And over the past month, we know this team doesn't have a general manager. The captain wants to leave this team with a select list of teams that he wants to go to. Of course, the ones that look poised to win. And you still have one of your top young players on the defensive end still not signed in Edvinsson. This is a team that continues to spiral down. And there's so many things they got to get done. Of course, ownership finding a new general manager is a big step. You need to do this because we know the ownership has already axed out multiple things. Anthony Mantha almost signed with this team, got axed out by ownership because there wasn't the full-time GM sitting in that position. But now you have so much to do. And with Simon Edvinsson, it's a guy that you need to get done. And you've spoke so much about this. Guys that miss this and go into training camp, you miss training camp, you go into the season, you're playing a speed behind on every single guy. Right now, of course, they're willing to match everything. But the fact that this team is in the position where you're saying, hey, we'll match anything, it can show what happens. I mean, look at the Anaheim Ducks. We've seen it with Leo Carlson. They said, we'll match everything. Guess what Danny Briere did? He put his big boy pants on and just made him the highest paid player in the NHL. Now, they're not going to do that to Simon, but Darius, there is a fear around this team. Of course, you need to get a general manager. I'm glad that they're not rushing in, just signing the first guy that comes in off the street and says, hey, I can work with computers and numbers. We want analytics. That's our guy. But I feel like it's one of the things, it doesn't feel like the urgency around this team is high enough. And if it is, ownership needs to step out and speak out about the current situation. Because as a fan of the team, you start to worry about everything piling up with no one being able to kind of fix this situation.
And like you mentioned a couple years ago, we just learned that a couple years ago, excuse me, but we just learned a couple days ago that Steven Stamkos, that whole thing was axed by ownership as well. And then just a couple weeks ago, that Anthony Mantha was axed as well. And we know that Sean Horkoff can't make trades, but can he make signings? Because there's a signing that needs to be made here. And of course, in theory, on paper, you know, you like to have the confidence from the organization. Like they said, they're not worried about an offer sheet. But at the end of the day, this is a player coming off of a very successful ELC. He played very, very well. And he is a 6'6" left shot, top pairing defenseman, which again, we've made it to the pretty much the end of August, the middle of August, and there's no offer sheet. I'm not sure if there's one coming here, but it's not just about that. You should sign this guy so he doesn't miss training camp. You need to get this done. He's training on his own right now, but if he misses some of training camp, it is scientifically proven that any player in any sport, if they miss training camp and getting in reps with their teammates, playing in the position that they are going to play in the season, it is going to affect their season. It is going to affect them long term that year. And the Red Wings need any advantage that they can get heading into next year, even if it's a small one like that, where guys are not discombobulated going into the year. So this is something that, you know, I caught flack for a couple weeks ago where I said this is the first order of business. It is, because it's relatively easy. If you look at all the, you know, projections going on here, this is what he is projected to make. And I'll make it bigger for you guys here. On the high end, $8.7 million. On the low end, $5.5 million. And that is a long-term versus a bridge contract. I would imagine they're going to go somewhere in the middle there. So that obviously, even if he's making almost $9 million for a top pairing defenseman, like I outlined, that's a guy that you want to get locked up. And I think you lock him up to that, because He complements Mo Sider so well. He's still only 22 years old, and you should lock him up as long as you possibly can. He's going to be a cornerstone of this team for a long time. And, again, a lot of people saying Larkin's probably the first order of business. I could understand that too, but it's a little more complicated because you can't really trade him with the list of teams that you've given him. And now he's going to be eating popcorn in the press box, right? Like it's an easier situation in terms of let's get a contract done with Edvinsson. He wants to be here, you want him to be here. So I think that it's a big factor right now. Like I mentioned, he's also skating, and I want to throw it over to you, Mark, again in a second, but he's skating by himself. He's getting in reps. He's going to be ready to go, but I think just missing training camp, even if it is a couple days, is not ideal. So they have to wrap up this GM search. Everything is relying on this GM search at this point to get a GM in place. And, you have Jeff Merrick saying, again, we made it to almost September at this point. Anything can happen, I guess, at this point. But he said, I do think the threat of an offer sheet for Simon Edvinsson, by the way, is quite real. So, Mark, do you think at this point, should the Red Wings be worried about an offer sheet? I would say less worried at this point in the summer. But at the same time, it's not even necessarily about that and then another team raising the price. It's about get it done so he can get in. You have one less problem. And can Sean Horkoff actually make a signing here? Because we heard it was just trades that he can't make.
I mean, I feel like it's in the situation where Chris Ilitch is looking at this and saying, hey, nothing is being done. We're going on vacation until we finally get a GM in. But with the way it's going, I mean, you don't want this to linger in the training camp. Of course, getting this done sooner means it gives you even more time to work on Dylan Larkin, getting him to expand his list. That is a topic I even hate talking about because screw that guy. You want to go to Florida, it sucks. Sit in the press box, eat some Little Caesars pizza. You're not going to a team unless we can get the value that we want. But going back into Edvinsson, it's a guy that you need to get it done. Like you outlined, a very young player, a very good young player. That's a huge part of this team on the back end. He's the second most valuable guy. Of course, Pelika can step up, have a good season, but at the end of it, this is a guy that's worked with Mo on that top pairing, a guy that you know what you have, and getting him locked up. Of course, this could be a long-term deal. Maybe you get this on a bridge. A lot of guys sign those 5 years deals. But Darius, with the offer sheets lingering, I'm not sure if a team is going to step in at this point. A lot of people spent their money. Of course, there's a lot of teams at the very bottom of the league when it comes to salary spent. The Red Wings are actually one of those teams at the moment because they don't have a GM to spend the damn money. But this is a team that needs to figure things out. And I think it really sits with Stevie Y and ownership right now, just finding that guy that can step in and hopefully right the ship, because at the moment, it feels like a team that's probably going to end up missing the playoffs again, but we probably could have said that for the past 10 years. But I think just getting this figured out, and I feel like it's a domino effect. You'll get this contract signed, you start getting some trade offers on Larkin, you get into camp and work from there. But at the moment, it doesn't feel great cheering with this team right now where you're looking and saying, hey, we have guys that want to compete, but nothing is happening around them at all.
And in terms of an offer sheet, just to get back to that before we wrap up, this is Elliot Friedman talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. If they end up trading Alexander Nikishin, watch out for the Hurricanes with them either offer sheeting or targeting certain players like Simon Edvinsson. So it's going to be interesting. Like you said, maybe it is a domino effect. To me, you got to get the guy in the door. And it's been very quiet in terms of reports, in terms of who they're interviewing and how that's all going. And apparently they only started interviewing candidates this week, which means there's going to be multiple stages to that. It could take a while still. We're almost on August here. We're halfway through August, which is hard to believe. Summer is done. And it's going to be interesting to see who ends up being the next general manager, because they are going to be tasked with a lot. You come in the door, figure out what's happening with Dylan Larkin, sign this contract extension, and trade Dylan Larkin if you can. And if you can't, you strip him of the C and you give it to somebody like Mo Sider, and we'll see. Let us know in the comments who you think the next captain should be, by the way, because there's been a lot of talk about that on social media the last little while as well. But anyway, last thing I'll mention, Simon Edvinsson, another new report here. He is going to get paid, absolutely paid. So, make sure that you're ready for that. The Red Wings have cap space to make that work. And we have no idea what it's going to look like if, Dylan Larkin does get traded. But everyone is pointing towards $8 million, somewhere in that range, $8 to $9 million on a longer-ish term deal. So that's kind of where it's headed at this point. Let us know in the comments what you would do. What would you sign Simon Edvinsson to? I think that sounds about right. 5-6 years at $8.5, $9 million, something like that. And let us know how you feel about Chris Ilitch and everything that's happening with the GM and Larkin.